I want people to be able to say like, oh, so like you're a Bravo thinker, like you're, yeah, like oh, you think like a Bravo.
Or even people to be able to recognise it and say, oh, you must work at Bravo. Like,
Yeah.
it's like the trademark is, oh, you're a critical thinker.
Yes.
I've always found travel to be an eye-opening experience. It's enjoyable, challenging, confronting, and ultimately can be life-changing. In October 2016, I wrote my fourth book, The Opposite Effect, whilst journeying around San Francisco. This time around, I set off to Germany with the intention of writing my sixth book and launching a new company. I originally thought this would be just like the last trip. What actually happened was the last thing I expected.
So, the name is the most important part, isn't it?
So I'm Steve Clayton.
Darcy J. Smythe.
I am an author, speaker, family man, and run a bunch of businesses that take me all over the place.
And someone who is deeply obsessed with human psychology, how we make decisions and why we do what we do.
I met Darcy
It sounds like a dating site, doesn't it? Steve and I met
3 years ago.
It is a dating site, Steve.
And I met him at an event put on by
Glenn Azar. And Steve was invited along by Glenn, and he came and sat at the back of the room and listened to what I had to say, listened to what I had to teach. And then at lunchtime we were sitting there eating our focaccia wraps, and I said, like, you know, what are you up to? What are you doing? He's like,
oh, I'm a sales trainer. He's like, oh, okay. And it was like this kind of strange moment of like sizing each other up, but I think he got pretty quickly that I was there to learn.
and we got talking and just discovered that we were pretty much on the exact same path, interested in the exact same things and interested in teaching them almost the exact same way.
And from there, we just kept in touch and we collaborated on a bunch of different stuff.
It was like a pretty instant friendship, wasn't it, Steve? There we go. Spot on, he says.
In early July 2018, I decided to head overseas to broaden my mind and influence my new book, The Project Principle, a publication that would serve as the backbone for our new company, Bravo. The Project Principle is a guideline for ensuring that businesses can survive in today's ever-changing sales landscape. It's built on 3 core principles. 1. How well do you know yourself, your DNA, and the company's DNA that you serve? 2. Can you use the knowledge from the past? And 3. Can you predict the future? Darcy and I decided to head to Germany to explore these 3 questions together.
We'll either get to the end of it and go, wow, we created something really special, or we'll get to the end of it and go, what the hell did we just do?
Yeah.
We quickly settled once arriving in Frankfurt, the first stop in our journey. First item on my agenda was to get stuck into writing, but exploring the city and soaking in its culture was essential to the writing's inspiration. And it was in Frankfurt that the realization of the difficult task I had ahead had begun to sink in.
This is day 1.
Check in. And
How about that though? Like,
have the
look at
barrel in the shot, of course.
Yeah. Like, what if I get to the end of this, and we get to the end of this?
Well,
And all of this stuff that we've done, and the results that we've got with clients and all that sort of stuff. What if the end of it is just I and you and whatever, we were in the right place at the right time, and we were just rotten twaddle crap, just spinning some stuff, and they just did it. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real concern I have.
So,
Like, what if we get to the end and all of my theory, like the project principle, this is the thing I've been selling to people for years,
yeah.
that I think has got great results for it. What if we get to the end of it, is that challenged and that flawed, that it's like, Steve, you're just simply that 2015 through 2019 or 2018 was a good time in history of business in these locations within these industries, and you just so happen to be there.
Right?
That's a genuine concern.
So the genuine concern is that you're not as good as you think you are.
100%.
First things first, what exactly is the project principle?
So the project principle is like a methodology or a process that I kind of stumbled across just with consulting to hundreds of different companies and finding just clues and patterns as we went, as far as what actually creates real change in an organization, because that's really why they work with us from a company level, is they want change, they want growth of some kind, personal, professional, both. And it all started with this conversation of, imagine one day we could do X number of revenue in a month. Wouldn't that be cool? And that was it. And it was quite amazing at how that in itself, just one very simple thing, created singularity of purpose. So that everyone in the organization knew what we were striving towards from a number level. But then it developed into those three core areas that I'm curious about in writing and filming. And that is, I believe people can grow exponentially when they get three things right. Number one, they know themselves really well. There's huge levels of self-awareness and they understand what makes them tick. And then the second thing is, can you use the past? And so it's by understanding that some things never change, really can lead to the biggest growth and give you the biggest clues, and looking at the foundation level, like what will never change. And number three, do you have the ability to predict the future? That's the key. If you don't know where you're going, if you cannot predict the future, you're stuffed, like really stuffed. And you become one of those people that become irrelevant. You're like, I don't know what's going on. I know it's not working, but I don't know why.
So how does the project principle impact my personal life and business? Well, part one, I felt like I had a good understanding of myself. I'd spent years training others, so it makes sense that I'd have a good understanding of my own mind. Germany ultimately proved me wrong here. Part two, I wanted to explore more of my past. I could trace my heritage back to my fifth great-grandfather, Johann Dickfus, who had lived in the small town of Brandenburg. Visiting this town was a big part of the reason I had wanted to travel to Germany in the first place. And part three, in regards to predicting the future, this is something I wanted to dive deep into with Darcy.
It can be really difficult sometimes because his mind is almost never switched off. And I can talk to him one-on-one. He can look at me while I'm talking to him, and I know he's not listening. He might be listening, but he's not really hearing because he's got something else going on. So yeah, his mind doesn't switch off very often. And sometimes I can get mad at him for that.
There's definitely something about getting yourself into a different environment though. Like you don't get, I don't know, it just makes you feel strange, but in a good way.
I think the biggest lesson I've had over these last 3 days is I thought I was confident. But it's easy to be confident when you're projecting a version of yourself that you're fond of.
I know that.
This is more me than ever. This is the real deal. You can even hide behind a book. And even because you can rewrite certain parts, or you can elaborate on certain situations and make it. It's just, I don't know. There's always part of my brain going like, why am I wearing a t-shirt right now? Or like, should we clean up the kitchen of our 20-cent beers before we like film something? Like, that's the thing that I'm battling with, is like, what if we get to the end of it and it's just all crap? And it actually sabotages what I've been working on for the last 5 years more than anything else.
If you want anything else, you're not sourcing truth.
Yeah.
You're not being a scientist. You're being a salesperson. You're just selling an idea. So, take this example. You could talk to the best scientists in the world that studies they study how corn interacts with the atmosphere when it's growing, and they do that for 80 years, and they have a hypothesis, right? They have this hypothesis that when the atmosphere does this, the corn will do that. And they study it for 80 years, and they find out their hypothesis was wrong. The best scientists will go, when asked, was that a waste of your time? They'll go, no, that was the best use of my time possible on this earth, because I'm a sourcer of truth, not I need my hypothesis to be correct, go me. I found a way that it didn't work, so now I leave my time on this earth, and the next scientist comes along and finds the next truth, knowing not to look what I looked for, because it's not true.
That's a fair statement. What makes you say that?
Less dogs. Have you seen how many dogs are on the street? So many dogs that don't have a home. They just get killed because they don't have anywhere to get. Less dogs. Less markets.
Less of everything.
Less, all the things need to be of less.
All the things of less.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you minimalist Stez.
Just less.
The minimal Stez. What about less of Stez's opinions? What do you reckon about
I think
that?
that's a good thing.
Less of that?
Our time in Frankfurt was wrapping up, and apart from my struggles with self-doubt, the book was still on track. The day before heading to Hamburg, Darcy approached me with an interesting analogy.
And I can sit there and just have my hand on that for days.
That's me.
That's easy.
That's
That's
the true,
resting.
it's the authentic version, yeah.
You know, I really feel for people that buy into the idea that the identity of someone they see is like who they need to start being. But then if you lift it up just 1 centimetre, so you go from 1 centimetre away from who you normally are, it's not very heavy right now. You and I are not Gary Vaynerchuk. You're Steve Clayton, I'm Darcy Smythe. But if I sit here for any more than probably 10 minutes, my arm's going to be doing this and shaking. And people do that for years. We're entirely different people. Not only do they hold on, but you know what else they do? It feels crap, so they try and solve the problem and end up going like this and building it even worse.
Yeah.
The world already has a Gary Vaynerchuk. Don't be him. You're gonna burn out because it's not you. And it all explodes. This is how people have This is how people have psychotic breakdowns. It should be easy, Steve.
Yeah.
It should be. We make it hard because we think we're not good enough. So then we do things to be good enough and end up moving away from the path that was just perfect for us anyway.
Was that the source of my stress and self-doubt? Was I not being my true self? Or was I afraid to show that to the world? Would they tell me it's not professional enough, or far too abstract to align with their company? I knew what Darcy was saying was undoubtedly true, but was he speaking in general, or directly to me?
But I never thought it'd go this way, Steve.
No.
While we're sitting here shooting this and talking like this, I never thought
so strange.
this was a conversation we were going to be having, but it keeps coming up.
Yeah, of course I was this confident guy that could conquer everything. I've never experienced more self-doubt in the last 2 days.
Really?
Yeah.
Will this be good enough? And I have no clue. I have no idea. All I know is that it's worth finding out.
It's worth pursuing.
Worth pursuing. And if it's worth pursuing, we'll always do our best. And if our best is not good enough, then there's nothing to complain about. At the best, we did our best. It wasn't good enough. We'll do better again next time.
Simply not good enough yet.
Simply not good enough yet.
If you're okay with facing the deepest, highest insecurities, fears, whatever,
Yeah,
just makes you a more rounded human being.
totally.
That's all it is at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yep.
Human beings. Hanging out with other human beings. It's gonna be like 8 hours. Big day.
So, I reckon just leave as early as we can.
Could leave it like 6 or something like that. Maybe chill on the beers tonight. As in have chilled beers tonight.
Oh, yeah, you got.
My first new car.
Congratulations.
My very first new car.
When's the last time you've driven, Das?
Last time I drove was in America, and I didn't do very well.
Oh, I'm terrified. Crazy. How's that feel? How's that feel, Das? You up?
That's the funnest thing I've ever done.
You are punching.
A lot of what I've discovered telling a lot of people and informing them on what they're going through and why they're going through it. But I don't necessarily believe that knowing why you're going through something actually helps. Why have I got anxiety? Why have I got depression? Why can't I make any money? Why? And if you figure out why and spend enough time researching that, then you're giving your brain all the information of how to recreate that.
Got it.
As opposed to simply feeling the feelings for what they're there for. That's the main premise, I believe, of you being a human being, is experiencing your emotions, the ups, the downs, all of it, processing it, and then moving on to like the next emotion to feel, as opposed to trying to figure it all out. Think about it. Without the negative, you can't have the positive, right?
Yeah.
If you're never going to feel negative, you don't deserve the positive.
Beautiful, mate.
Thank you. Thank you.
The boys are happy. The boys are really happy. You've done well there, lad.
Cheers. Cheers.
I think we should try and make this thing go 230 kilometers an hour.
I think you're right.
Can we do 230?
We braked when necessary and continued on to Hamburg, discussing mental wellness and touching on topics I was writing about, pattern recognition and incrementalism. Upon arriving, we experienced some trouble returning our hire car to the right place.
So, the second guy, way more helpful, explained that we need to put a 1 hour parking ticket in there, which we did an hour ago, so it's probably expired already. But it's just, they just charge us a fine of €25 to take it back to the other place. But yeah, she was like, like, we just wanted to make sure. It's like, that will ruin a trip. You're like, get an email. Yeah, so we just charged you €25,000 because the car has been found unlocked. There's a bunch of homeless people sleeping in it and it's been stolen. Good? He's happy?
He's happy.
He's good?
He's done.
All right, take two. Back to Hamburg.
I'm so gutted. Look. No. Not the alkalizing greens. Damn it.
Oh, don't tell me.
Now I've got water in the thing. You said you wanted drama for this thing. This is not the kind of drama at all. Today has been the craziest day.
Everything seemed to be going well, mostly. I believed I was past my worries and ready to take the next step into further business strategies. Hamburg caught me completely off guard.
I just think that I have this huge belief that people are starved for true meaning in their lives. And I think for a lot of people, it can require some form of tragedy, some form of trauma, some form of huge battle that they need to go through to then understand what is actually truly important to them in their life.
We've been talking about this cathartic. Finally get it. There's the breakthrough. We've been talking about this cathartic process for a while now, and we're talking about the first principle, self-awareness. And I started writing this thing for people to do, to write for 30 days. And part of me was like, yeah, this will work, it sounds really good. And then I got to the first question was, what do you want? And I said an example that might happen, and the way to overcome this is to always write. So even if you're stuck in your head and going, writer's block and you keep hitting the backspace button, typically it shows to me, or anytime that happens to me, I've got self-doubt and fear. And so I started to type one example of how you could do that. And I said, what a silly question. I don't know what I want. That's why I'm writing these words. Am I Am I doing this right? That's what I've always been most afraid of. Am I doing this right? And it just all came out of me. And I suppose I got to this moment of, I could have easily put it into this book to make myself look really good, but maybe this whole experience is just to get me to write those words. And I've always bottled it up. And be good at putting on a face. I don't cry, I never cry. But there's this weird thing about vulnerability, that it's in perfect balance of courage and strength. And the very thing I'm most afraid of is these random people looking at this dude with a video camera of a fully grown man bawling his eyes out. But I don't give a stuff. They all wish they could probably do this too. And maybe they need to just write and get stuff out of it. Because it makes you feel human. And that's what all of us are. We've all got vulnerabilities, we're all human. But we're all good at putting a face on. Particularly in a place like Hamburg. They're perfect dogs and they're nice coats. They're just freaking out the same as me. So anyway, this was the last thing I expected to happen today. But it's probably the perfect thing to happen. Feels good. Feels really good. It's weird that we're all going through our own stuff. Maybe this whole thing has nothing to do with the project principle. It just has everything to do with us going through our own stuff. And my hope is that people watching this, reading this, seeing this, get to experience this. It's all worth it. I even wrote in there I want to put on t-shirts without feeling like I have to suck in my stomach, or walk past glass like that and not feel the need to look at myself and be unhappy with what I see. Why is that in a business book? Part of my brain's going, that has nothing to do with anything, but maybe it has everything to do with everything. Yeah. Feels good.
Maybe to some of you, the event you just witnessed seems trivial. There's likely a number of watchers who have no trouble expressing their emotions. Let me tell you, you are the lucky ones. But for myself, I had just joined you. I'd turned the key and opened the door into a brand new world.
Yeah. I miss my girls. I miss my girls so much. I just wish I could just hug them. I just know they're going to get a better dad from this. Because I don't feel like I need to be this person. makes me happy. And so, I'm going to be a better dad, I'm going to be a better husband, a better business partner, a better consultant. Knowing that I can feel what I need to feel and not be afraid of it or scared of that happening. It's so interesting, like that piece of writing where it's turned into a morphing of this is a potential example of how you get over writer's block to like, oh, hang on a sec, this is for me. The first words, am I doing this right? Like, I was like, crap, that's always been the thing that makes me model things up. This is the right way of doing it. I love to be right. When it just is, like, it's just a process. Like, I don't know, it's just, you can't put it into words what it actually is. But like, putting less stress on yourself to do things right. Like, even this documentary one, are we doing this right? Like, it's so completely beside the point of what it actually, it is. It will just be. It is what it is. And it works. And it's great. So, I don't know, I feel a lot less pressure. And even, like, super excited for Bravo, not knowing that it needs to be right. It just is. Knowing that we'll always be taken care of. We're fine. Cheers to that.
In retrospect, I could easily say that that moment was the defining moment of our journey. My writing flowed freely from that point on. The first pillar of the project principle was effectively applied to my life. Soon after, I'd be able to touch on my past when we reached Brandenburg, and the future predicting concepts I discussed with Darcy from this point on blew both our minds. Our small group continued to explore Hamburg during our short stay, but it was only now that I could truly appreciate it. It's the little things that make all the difference.
I want 6 packs for $2.
No, $1.30. Yeah. $1.39. $1.39. Yeah. How do you say it? €1.39.
I think so. Makes sense. Filthy.
But do you say it €1.39?
Yeah. One in
Picking, yeah. Singing, this is our official rehearsal.
there. First band practice starts, leading the way.
And that's kind of like the excitement of it all. Not so much the trip, because I don't know what's actually going to happen. I know it's going to be cool, and there's going to be lots of cool stuff, and we could be eating pizza at 4 a.m. in a weird place and meet some dude the same as last time. Who knows? I'm not expecting any of that, but I'm hoping that the click and the last record button, we get to the end and go, that was cool.
Hamburg's been awesome. Really love it here, and also had some pretty interesting experience here as well. So that's something I've really enjoyed, and yeah, I'm kind of in that point now where I'm excited to still be in the journey of creating this thing, but at the same time, part of me is looking forward to going home and seeing my girls and Anna, and yeah, just spending some time with them. Which would be cool. So, halfway point, Hamburg. It's a good place. It's a really cool place. It's been an interesting journey so far. Can't you get take her to a place that I belong? I belong. Well, we're gonna get deep here, real.
Go ahead. So,
Well, I totally think that people walk around with a void that they try and fill.
yeah, name one person that doesn't.
Everyone's got a void that they're trying to fill.
Yeah. Something they're trying to prove, a void they're trying to fill, a problem they're trying to solve.
But is it possible to fill the void by yourself?
It's human nature. It's what gets us up in the morning. This is what I think I've discovered a lot of over like the last, I would say 3 months in particular, is that I used to think that I didn't want any problems. Like I thought that was the aim, have as little amount of problems as possible and solve problems when they come up.
And then the problem becomes you've got no problem and then you're bored.
And you're bored, right? And then so like that becomes, the whole idea becomes, well, don't seek to have no problems. Seek to have problems that are worth solving. That's what it means to be human, isn't it? Like you're born, you aim to fill an abyss that can never be filled, and then you die. And filling that abyss is like the point of life. That's it. If there was no abyss to fill, no void to fill, you wouldn't do anything.
I reckon I've had more deep conversations in the last 9 days than I've probably had in the last 9 years.
Sure.
Like really like brain stretching, like mind twisting conversations, which feel great. Like they feel awesome. But why do you think it is so many companies like almost only ever play at the surface? Like what if this type of weird, deep conversation, mind twisting conversation is what every company actually needs to work out what purpose it like is? I don't know. My whole brain's into a weird fuzz. And like I'm feeling a lot more carefree.
Because now you're facing an abyss, right? And it's probably the most alive you've felt in quite a while. But if we make this practical, it's been the questions that we've been asking throughout our writing and these conversations that we've been having have all been about uncovering the hidden. Like lifting up the rock you never ever wanted anyone to lift up. Like what's the thing you're not telling yourself? It's always it's the toughest questions to answer because they send you into the abyss. But that's where all the cool stuff happens. And doing that, you have to jump into the water with no land. That's where you'll find the answer. Because it's not just going to come to you easily. It's not like, I want to know this thing about myself. I'll just Google it. Oh, that's that. Great. And I'm sorted. You got to earn it. You got to earn it.
We'd mentally reached the end of our journey and accomplished something far greater than we could have ever anticipated. During my final day in Germany, I set my sights on completing a personal quest that tied into the second pillar of the project principle. I wanted to journey to Brandenburg and spend time in the town that my 5th great-grandfather, Johann Dickfuss, had lived in. I've come to learn that there's a lot you can discover about yourself and business by looking into the past.
So Granddad Tom, he served in the Navy. He was a torpedo's right-hand man, and it was quite rare. We'd done a bit of research on him. He was awarded the Pacific Star and the Atlantic Star World War II, which is quite rare, meaning he was on quite an active boat that was traveling around a destroyer. And he survived the war, and I'm sure he left with a perforated eardrum because his eardrum exploded one time. That would have been caught in some crossfire. He was underneath one of those big guns, and so Mum remembers going to the beach and he used to have to buy a pack of chewing gum and he'd chew on it and stick it in his ear before he went for a swim. It's funny. But I don't know anything really about him other than a couple of dozen photos that Mum and Dad still have. When he left back into civilian life, he became a salesperson. And I always thought I was a bit of a black sheep in my family. My family's full of academics. They're all kind of got red hair. They look different to me. Me on this entrepreneurial business thing is quite different. My cheekiness is different. I've always felt I was different in my family. And it wasn't until I started to explore Granddad Tom and I'm like, man, I look like the guy. And Mum says my sense of humor is very similar and the way that we do things is very similar, and it's this weird type of connection. But he was unfortunately king hit when my mum was 18. He lived in Rockhampton, and a guy was siphoning fuel out of his car, and he went out to go, hey, what the heck are you doing? And this guy king hit Granddad Tom, and unfortunately a short time after that he passed away. My mum was 18 and that was that. And the way that my family dealt with that, particularly my grandma, and was, okay, be strong, move on. And so they never really spoke about him, and I never really knew who he was until I got curious, and maybe I just didn't ask enough questions, but nothing was really said until I started getting curious, and that was the moment that everything changed. And that's when I decided to write The Diary of a Success-Driven Kid in 7 days in a journal format. It's like my style of writing. Pretty much every book I've written is in this format where I document the date, the location, and the time. And that was because I had this realization that I'm sure Granddad Tom didn't expect to depart from the planet that night. You know, in 1974, you know, I'm sure he was expecting to go on the next day and go back to his sales job, but it didn't happen. And I think that's what's so precious about life and equally terrifying about time, is we've all got an expiry date. Nobody knows when it is. And so that's motivated me. Death has motivated me to document, to write, to show things, because I wish I had stories, I wish I had footage of him, I wish I had more about him, because I carry his DNA. And if I could understand more about him, I'd understand more about myself. And so if I can document this stuff for my kids' kids, and their kids' kids, over my entirety of my life, maybe that will give them some of the clues about them, because they can see some of their DNA in me.
There's no records anywhere, so I don't think we'll find it here. We're kind of okay with that. It's just a cool experience to come all this way, but you know, at the same time, kind of hang out in places where my family came from, so cool experience. That just gives me a bit of comfort knowing that, so yeah.
Oh, big 2 weeks.
I think we're both just getting to the end and being like,
Yeah.
wow.
Lesson number 1 has been catharsis. Like, continually finding ways to process the emotions and the thoughts and the pressure that can come with doing whatever work you're doing. Because if you allow it to build up, it builds up. And it has to come out some way. So you can either be strategic and conscious about letting it out some way, or you can leave it up to chance and have it spill out in all these, you know, wacky and weird emotions and experiences.
That's the actual cause of burnout.
Yeah.
It's just like denying emotion, denying feelings, denying anything and going, no, this is the way it has to be.
Yeah.
I've never felt freer from the process of just emotion and being okay with that.
Nice.
And it is what it is, and that's been such a cool experience. There's been so much video stuff that we've both done, and there's always part of you that goes like, yeah, that was close to who I am, or that was close to what it was actually like to be there, or that vlog was, yeah, it was pretty accurate, but this was by far the most natural something's been. So yeah, it's been a cool journey, man. That was a solid fist bump. That felt good. This is the most unnatural fist bump.
What I'm hoping to happen is we get to the end of the trip, and not only do I hit the save button and close the laptop, but you press that record button for the last time, and I know that we've created something really special. That's a time capsule that lives on way longer than us.
Here it is, the moment I've been anticipating. The same as the very start of this project. I'm feeling overwhelmed with joy and sadness that this has to come to an end. It's been one incredible life-changing experience. I want to leave you with my final thoughts. Let me tell you that it's okay to feel. Feeling is a necessary part of being human. Don't suppress it. It's okay to cry. It's okay to surrender. It's okay to trust. It's okay to let go. It's okay to tell others that you love them. It's okay to be loved. Never miss an opportunity because of fear. Dance in front of strangers. Don't take the little things for granted. Pat the random dog that walks past you on the sidewalk. Appreciate the child crying on the bus. Appreciate life for all its ups and downs. Take the time to look for clues. They are in fact everywhere. Take the time to look for patterns and create your own patterns. Look backwards in time to find out what the future holds. History repeats itself over and over again. Life is but a blip, here for a moment and then gone. Don't take that lightly. Do the things you love. Share love with other people and don't be afraid to hug. Don't be afraid to share a real moment with someone you don't actually know that well. Appreciate home. It's a beautiful place that you'll wish for when you're not there. Travel when you can. It expands your mind and makes you realize that it's all the same. Tell your partner that you love them dearly, that they are your world, that they make life worth living. Share your secrets with them. Be excited to tell them all that you've done and return the favor with an ear that is eager to listen. And when it all comes to a close and you look back on life, don't live with regret. Instead, enjoy that moment with a sip of your favorite drink with your favorite people around you. Everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's just not the end yet.